And we continue our discussion on Exclusive with Taghreed Hussein with Mr. Jeremy Hopkins, UNICEF's representative in Egypt. We talked in the last episode about this sense of partnership. Continuing this sense of partnership, we talked about UNICEF ambassadors in Egypt and how this is also an important part of UNICEF's journey. However, we need to talk more, Mr. Jeremy, good to have you again, about the future plans and talking also about the sense of partnerships that will help us achieve all our plans.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you. Yes, I mean, partnership is absolutely crucial. We can't achieve anything, and we're not here to achieve anything on our own. We are under the guidance of the government and in partnership with many, many actors in order to achieve children's rights in Egypt.
Yes. UNICEF's main initiatives in Egypt, and what were the results that really came outstanding, from your opinion? We have worked on a 5-year plan already, so tell me more about the results that came really outstanding.
I'll give you a couple of examples.
Yes.
And you know, often in a country like Egypt, which has enormous capacity, it's about bringing a good practice based on our international experience and international standards, bring a good practice to the country, remodeling it to fit the context of Egypt, and then with the government, and then asking the government to take it on and take it to scale. So we have a couple of interesting models that I'd like to focus on for a second. So one is using the health center as an opportunity for poorer mothers to bring their children for daycare. Don't normally have daycare options, and they need somebody to look after their children so that they can go out and earn a living or look after the rest of the household. So we have been piloting that with the Ministry of Health and Ministry of Social Solidarity, which is a fantastic program. Another, again, smallish scale, but I went to visit it myself in Qina, was working with a certain number of schools under the Directorate of the Ministry of Education to prepare parents, teachers and children on how to integrate physically or mentally disabled child into a mainstream school. And I saw the results with my own eyes, very impressive. You talk to the parents and they said at the beginning we were too nervous to send our disabled child to this school. The teacher was like, I don't want a disabled child in this school, it's too complicated. You give them the tricks, you show them give them the skills, give them the facilities, a little bit of logistical support, and it can work. So that's something that's a model that we're scaling up. Then at the very high level, you know, we work with the Ministry of Health, for example, on vaccinations. The recent polio campaigns being an example. Yes. Obviously, the current COVID vaccination campaign, we're providing some technical support, very much under the leadership of the ministry. And we have sort of a different kind of scale of results. We have the very high level results where we're behind the scenes providing technical support, and then we have modeling for scale up.
Yes. Well, definitely we are all humans and unique. We share the experience of having areas of strength and weaknesses. However, our opportunities and abilities to capitalize on those strengths and to have a sense of accommodation of our weaknesses are varying tremendously. And from here came the Diverse and the United campaign. Yes,
indeed. I mean, it's the issue that in a middle-income country such as Egypt is one we have to pay close attention to, because the bigger battles have been won, right? But there are still subtle issues related to exclusion and marginalization. So we need to be very aware of them. We can campaign through social media, as you've mentioned, as you've seen, and then we also have to put our money where our mouth is, so to speak, and make sure that our programming is aligned with it.
Yes. Diverse but United came as another important campaign on the 24th of June within the framework of the partnership between the club and UNICEF, one of Egypt's major sporting clubs, and that was really fruitful.
Yes, they are fruitful if we can engage respected people in Egyptian society to champion children's rights and children's causes, we achieve results. I think you're probably aware of the anti-bullying campaign of a couple of years ago, and the remarkable results that were achieved, and it even went beyond Egypt's borders. And that was thanks to, again, to our goodwill ambassadors and to the good thinking of my own UNICEF colleagues and the government colleagues with whom we are working. But the campaigning has great potential to succeed.
Yes, definitely. Well, the expected results of UNICEF's work in Egypt are contributing to national efforts and also the priorities that Mr. Jeremy has been talking about, and also Egypt's 2030 National Sustainable Development Strategy, as well as the UN Partnership for Development Framework. So we have like 7 years, last 7 years, and the last 7 years Egypt has achieved a lot, tremendous leaps under the leadership of President Sisi. Would you tell us more about the main fruits of the past 7 years that you consider to be stars in the history of a sense of partnership between Egypt and UNICEF?
Sure. I think, if I just go to touch on 2 or 3, the under 5 mortality rate is now really quite low. It's, of course, even if one child dies under 5, it's too high, but it's 20 per 1,000, which compares very favorably with the, if you look at the trajectory that Egypt's been on over the last 20, 30 years. So that's a great improvement, and that is a testament to the health services at the basic level. If you look at primary education, we have gender parity between boys and girls. That's an enormous achievement. Similarly, I should say we don't have gender parity at secondary education level. We still have girls dropping out too soon, too early. And if we look in the protection section, where we work with the Ministry of Social Solidarity, I think the child protection committees that we now have run by the National Council for Childhood and Motherhood and the Ministry of Social Solidarity that refer any vulnerable child through the Child Helpline to the required services is also a great achievement. And these are all very much in line with the 2030 vision of Egypt.
Yes, definitely. And also among the components and the achievements of Egypt throughout the past 7 years was the fact that we took great leaps in empowering women and also preparing women for leadership. And this happens still with the kids at an early age. How about UNICEF's contribution in that respect to prepare the female leaders for the future?
So we are very conscious of the evidence that shows very directly that if you invest in a girl's education, you have the fruits of that investment in her adult life and for the life of her children and her family. So we know that earnings go up, life expectancy goes up, the educational outcomes for her children go up if she goes and completes her secondary education. So one of our big efforts is to try to have girls complete secondary education. Another piece of work that we're doing with the National Council for Childhood and Motherhood is called DAWI, and it's a girls' empowerment initiative. And we've reached about 300,000, but it's online. We really want to scale it up to the millions that it needs to be, to have girls able to discuss the challenges they face and how they're going to get over them. And I have to mention 2 challenges that we do face in terms of girls and women's empowerment, and that is female genital mutilation and early marriage. These are challenges to the empowerment of girls and women. And
but still, we managed to get great leaps also in fighting those two, definitely.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's quite remarkable. I think we're going to witness the drastic decline of female genital mutilation in our generation, so to speak, while we're here. The government has taken absolutely the right approaches, and all the pieces of the puzzle in place for us to see that drop drastically, and child marriage along with it, we hope.
Yes. UNICEF is aligning its programs with the national and international development priorities, and this, in fact, is including Egypt's Vision 2030, the Sustainable Development Goals, and also UNICEF's 5 global goal areas. So the role Egypt is playing definitely in the region and in Africa concerning UNICEF's goals and targets as you see it.
Well, I mean, Egypt, as I mentioned earlier in the last segment, is that Egypt has 40% of the Middle East and North Africa's children. That's enormous. So that means what Egypt does counts, and it means that regionally, certainly in UNICEF, and also if I believe many countries look to Egypt for leadership on social issues. So what Egypt does with its social protection program, others may learn from. What Egypt does in its education program and the reform that's ongoing, which is quite remarkable, other countries are going to learn from. Universal health coverage, other countries are going to learn from. And Egypt, I see them also playing a very strong role in the African Union. So they're bridging between obviously the Middle East and North Africa and the African Union, and they are spearheading lots of initiatives. And we as UNICEF, because we're present in 190 countries, so we're present in all those other countries. We often call on Egypt to show that leadership, provide the leadership, and help us learn on behalf of children more globally.
The online learning platforms for children after COVID, and how far children are adjusting to this new sense of online education. In your opinion, the pros and cons, and how did UNICEF see this experience?
Well, I have to congratulate the Ministry of Education in the sense that they were far-sighted in that they had a big investment already in digital learning that was ready to go when the corona pandemic hit. Luckily, otherwise we would have been in a much worse state. So that was the vision of the ministry and the minister. Of course there are cons though, and our biggest concern is the digital divide, we call it, where the most vulnerable and marginalized children may not have access to the same technology, equipment, electricity, internet connection as mainstream children. And that the ministry is very aware of that, and we are working with the ministry to try it wherever we can to reduce that digital divide. And during the pandemic, we do know that some children did not study to the level that we would have hoped, but nor did they in any country. So Egypt actually has better indicators than many other countries for the online learning during the pandemic. As we come out of the pandemic, and we do hope that children will be able to get back to school and back to learning in school, online learning still has its place. It must have its place. And we do have a piece of work where we're working with the ministry to help cater to children who may not have a good internet connection or maybe out of school, but still need to access online learning. And that's, again, a great potential to reduce that digital divide.
Yes, that would be great. And talking also about your priorities, Mr. Jeremy, and you know, each representative comes also with a vision and with dreams that he wants to achieve. While we are setting a new plan in action, and you told us about one of the pillars or one of the secrets concerning youth empowerment. Right. And what would be the priorities on your desk in the sense of cooperation in the coming phase?
So, I mean, it will be the government that sets the priorities with us.
Yes.
But I think we will have a continued piece of work around social protection and social workers. Social workers are the people who interact with the most vulnerable children, and I think there's a lot of potential to strengthen that cadre, and in the context of the cash transfer social protection schemes that exist in this country. A second piece is obviously to support the Ministry of Health in the transition to universal health coverage through our work in primary health care. And a third would be working with the Ministry of Education to support the ministry bringing good practices to the table as they roll out Education 2.0. And then the fourth one, which I mentioned earlier, will be to work with young people and help them transition from adolescence to adulthood, learning to earning.
Yes. If we talk about other projects that would be involving the children, I guess we have here on ITV International Kids Show, for instance. This is a program that is mainly talking about kids' inspirational stories and expertise, and also promoting their ideas. So that kind of having the children as heroes and as ambassadors, did you think of that, having some of the children to be chosen as UNICEF's ambassadors, for instance?
So that's a good question. So certainly one of our principles by which we work is we call it participation. So we want children to participate everywhere where we program.
Because sometimes kids listen to other kids. I mean, the communication is definitely high.
Yes, I mean, there's models in some countries where to promote vaccination, we work with children to persuade other children, to persuade their parents to take them for a vaccine.
Exactly.
That's not what we're doing in Egypt, but we certainly want to promote child participation as champions, absolutely. And we do have some work through the Sports for Development program that you mentioned before with the Ministry of Youth and Sports, where we've working with particularly talented, inspiring children who are good at a particular sport, to then inspire and work with other children. And wherever we can, for example, the other day we had a discussion with children on their understanding of nutrition, We want to hear from children about these technical issues, see what they think and see how they think they can change the world.
And Ahmed Hilmi can help a lot in that because he used to present also on TV before a kids show.
Yes, indeed. And I mean,
and it was very successful. It was a hit then. Yeah.
He's just recently been appointed as a Goodwill Ambassador for the region.
Yeah.
And I'm quite sure he will be working on this kind of portfolios. Yes, absolutely.
Yes, I'm quite sure that we have lots in store together and lots of future plans between UNICEF in Egypt and definitely also in Africa. Before wrapping up, a final message that you would like to direct through an ITV International. Who are you going to direct this message to? And maybe you would love to say something for kids all over the world from Egypt.
I would love to say two things, if I may. One is
Sure.
that I haven't yet, but we have to acknowledge that none of the work we could do would be without the generous support from our donors, who are many, many member states of the United Nations, who step up either at central level or at country level to provide support for the work we do. To children themselves, I would love to say a few things. I would say, you know, get to school, get to learning, tell your parents to look after you well, and dream big, because if you get into school and you dream big, there's no limit.
Definitely dream big and have passion for what you are doing or what you will be doing to be successful. And we have here Mr. Jeremy Hopkins as a great example with his diversified experience all over the world. I thank you so much, Mr. Jeremy Hopkins, UNICEF's representative in Egypt, for that exclusive. Honored.
Thank you, Dr. Taghreed. It was an honor.
Thank you. And I thank you, dear viewers, for joining us. That was Exclusive with Taghreed Hussein tonight.